What happens when a billion-dollar warship built to intimidate is hunted by drones that cost less than a family car? On October 12, 2025, Ukraine proved that precision and code can overpower steel and arrogance. At dawn on October 12, 2025, the port of Novarosk believed it was beyond reach. Its defenses had been layered and hardened for months. Russian and North Korean crews had turned the coastline into a living machine of radar, missiles, and guns. The sea was watched from every angle. Its surface divided into invisible grids of sensor coverage and threat zones. If anything moved, they would see it. And if anything flew, they would shoot it down. That was the belief, until the morning Ukraine arrived. Novorosk's outer ring bristled with radar-guided Panzer S-1 launchers, their tubes loaded and locked toward the horizon. Along the concrete embankments, AK-630 close-in weapon systems sat ready to spit out nearly 10,000 explosive shells per minute, their six-barreled cannons tracking invisible arcs in the night air. The harbor's command center was alive with green light and noise. Operators leaned over screens filled with overlapping radar tracks, data streams, and echoes. Above them, the layered surveillance net pulsed. Orion reconnaissance drones circling under cloud cover, their sensors searching for targets that never came. And in the center of that grid floated their crown jewel, a stealth frigate fitted with 8 vertical launch tubes, each loaded with a Bukakong 3 missile capable of hitting targets more than 2,600 feet away. Crews aboard the ship stood at battle stations. Every few minutes, radar dishes rotated and reset. Engines idled on standby. The entire harbor was convinced it could not be touched. But Ukraine didn't send destroyers. It didn't send submarines. It brought something else. Smaller, cheaper, smarter. Just past 4 a.m., an unmanned swarm crept toward the port from 3 different directions. 6 AQ-400 Scythe drones skimmed the surface of the Black Sea at barely 50 feet, their terrain-following radars keeping them level above the waves as they pushed north at 90 miles per hour. To the south, 3 Mara 5 unmanned boats charged through 6-foot swells, each guided by encrypted signals and preloaded maps of the coastline. 2 of the boats carried 700-pound shaped charge warheads. The third was a decoy, a radar mimic built to look like a friendly patrol craft. Above it all, a Bayraktar TB2 loitered at 27,000 feet, relaying live telemetry through a Starlink uplink. It painted targets and stitched together the data into a unified picture of the battlefield. But hidden within that swarm was something new, a small US-backed platform, faster, quieter, invisible to radar. It was driven by onboard AI and inertial guidance instead of remote control. It was not built for destruction, it was built for precision, and this was its first combat mission. The target was not simply the harbor, it was what the harbor represented. A logistics hub hiding under Russian control but packed with North Korean hardware. Missile boats, radar trucks, damaged corvettes, mobile command posts, and the stealth frigate sitting in the middle of it all. The operation's goal was to unbolt the fortress one hinge at a time. By 4:30 a.m., the port was quiet. Floodlights swept across the water. Security patrols moved along the piers. Somewhere in the distance, a radar picked up faint reflections off the sea's surface. Low, erratic, hard to lock. Operators dismissed it as sea clutter. From the west, 6 scythes crept in at just under 90 miles per hour, still hugging the water at 50 feet. From the south, 3 Mura 55 boats cut through the waves. Above them, the TB2 tightened its orbit and began marking high-value targets. Its camera locked onto the stealth frigate with its 8 vertical launch tubes. A $500 million warship that had no idea what was coming. At 4:35 a.m., the first move began. The operator sent the activation code. 2 scythes peeled off and released massive clouds of chaff. Thousands of metallic fibers that bloomed across radar scopes like storms. To the defenders, it looked like 2 large drones had broken formation and were charging in. Sirens wailed, missiles armed, gun turrets turned. Meanwhile, the other 4 scythes dropped to just 30 feet above the water, sliding behind the granite cliffs that line Krasnodar coast. Using the terrain for cover, they slipped beneath the radar horizon. The TB2 high above continued to feed encrypted coordinates to the strike network, mapping every defensive radar and missile position in real time. Inside the enemy command center, confusion spread. Their Castor 2 E2 radar flagged the low-flying scythes as biological clutter, birds blown off course by the fog. Another radar system, the 96L6, locked onto the Marafi decoy and calculated its radar cross-section at about 110 square feet, moving at 25 miles per hour. Convinced it was a patrol gunboat, the coastal battery commander ordered a missile strike. 3 57 E-6E missiles roared off the rails and slammed into the decoy. The explosion was immense, a 7,000-degree blast that vaporized the aluminum hull and threw a 20-foot plume of water into the air. But the flash temporarily blinded every radar and optical sensor nearby. In those few seconds, the real attackers surged forward. One scythe was hit by stray shrapnel and broke apart in midair, but the rest flew on, closing distance fast. By 4:37 a.m., the defenders had fired 12 missiles and destroyed only one real target. Then the next phase began. The Russians triggered the Kasuka-4 electronic warfare system, unleashing a concentrated electromagnetic pulse across a 186-mile radius. In an instant, all drone feeds went dark. Ukrainian screens filled with static. Red text flashed, signal lost. But the scythes didn't stop. They switched seamlessly into inertial navigation, their AI brains using gyroscopes, accelerometers, and stored terrain maps to stay on course without GPS or data links. One drone detected the source of the electromagnetic pulse, the radar truck generating the field, and turned directly toward it. Flying at roughly 90 miles per hour, it dove straight into the emitter vehicle. The 154-pound shaped charge exploded downward, cutting through the truck's frame and igniting the fuel cell. The vehicle disintegrated in a single orange fireball. The EMP field collapsed. The Dacia's TB2 reconnected, its video feeds flickering back to life. 4 scythes remained, and the strike pressed on. On the screens inside Ukraine's control bunker, data returned. Trails of heat, false radar echoes, and overlapping signals. The operators focused on the key objective, the stealth frigate. One scythe broke formation and targeted a Panzer I launcher guarding the harbor's western edge. It flew at 92 miles per hour, only 32 feet above the ground, deploying flares to confuse heat-seeking interceptors. Then it dove. The warhead struck the launcher's turret. A copper jet burned through armor plating, ignited the ammunition feed, and turned the launcher into an expanding sphere of flame. Temperatures spiked beyond 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Shrapnel tore outward for 120 feet. Seismic sensors registered a 2.1 magnitude tremor. The remaining scythes immediately adjusted course, but 3 Orion Hunter drones scrambled from a coastal airstrip, fast interceptors designed for chasing small, agile targets, each carrying a single KA-B-20 laser-guided bomb. The first Orion locked onto the heat signature of a Mura 55 boat turning sharply across the water. It released its payload. The munition struck cleanly, detonating the boat's 700-pound charge prematurely. A column of fire and seawater shot 26 feet into the air. Half of the unmanned naval strike force was wiped out in a single explosion. The operator in the Ukrainian bunker didn't panic. He ordered the last Mura 55 to throttle down to 18 miles per hour and duck between the waves, reducing its radar visibility to almost nothing. The surviving Seathieves went cold, cutting their exhaust heat, venting upward to avoid infrared detection, and weaving close to the coastline's cliffs to stay masked. The TB2, still circling at 27,000 feet, locked onto the lead Orion drone and transmitted coordinates. One scythe broke formation, climbed slowly, and entered the Orion's blind spot from behind. At 4:40 a.m., it struck. The explosion shattered the Orion mid-air. Burning wreckage splashed into the Black Sea. The other 2 Orions lost visual contact and blinked off their feeds. Only 2 scythes and 1 Marafi boat remained, slipping past the outer ring of defenses. Then the flagship's AK-630 Bomby C IWS roared to life. Streams of 30mm shells ripped the air. One scythe was caught turning and shredded instantly, fragments scattering into the sea. The last scythe continued, flying erratically to force the gun's targeting computer to recalculate constantly. Meanwhile, the Mura 55 launched a final burst of chaff, aluminum fibers that exploded into dozens of ghost radar signatures. The warship's gun kept firing, but the 5-degree roll of the ship in the 6-foot swells made precise aiming impossible. After 19 seconds of continuous fire, the gun ran dry. Its barrels spun down. The radar lost lock. At 4:43 a.m., the TB2 marked 2 final coordinates, the fuel depot beneath the pier and the missile deck of the stealth frigate. The scythe received the data, descended sharply, and went in. The shaped charge warhead hit just below the pier, punching through 1 inch of steel before tearing into a fuel tank. The blast triggered a chain reaction. Flames burst outward, and a 31-foot fireball engulfed the harbor's edge. Shockwaves rolled across the port, shattering windows 300 yards away. Regional seismic monitors recorded a 3.4 magnitude tremor. Burning fuel poured across the pier, feeding a secondary blaze that climbed toward the warship. The heat warped the launch assemblies. Guidance systems for all 8 Pukong 3 missiles failed under the thermal load. The stealth frigate stayed afloat, but its weapons were dead. Within minutes, the sky above Novarosk turned orange. The harbor's layered defense grid went silent. Missile tubes melted, fire control radars cracked, and the flagship's port side was blackened with soot. 15 minutes after the first chaff burst, the fortress that once looked invincible was broken. Ukraine had dismantled a billion-dollar stronghold using less than $2 million in unmanned systems. No manned aircraft were involved. No destroyers entered the fight. No satellites were destroyed. It was all achieved through plywood airframes, smart software, and precise coordination. By 4:45 a.m., flames still licked across the harbor. The North Korean stealth frigate, once capable of threatening entire cities, now sat paralyzed beside a burning pier. Its missile tubes were warped and useless. The crew had been evacuated. The weapon that had cost over $1 billion to build was now little more than a floating wreck. Inside the Ukrainian command bunker, there was no cheering. Operators sat in silence, their screens showing nothing but fire, smoke, and distorted heat signatures over Novarosk. They had done their job, but they all knew what it meant. This wasn't just a tactical success, it was proof that cheap, intelligent, unmanned platforms could destroy assets once thought untouchable. It was a message, one written in fire over the Black Sea, that the balance of warfare was shifting. No aircraft carrier, no destroyer, no fortress could ever again be assumed safe from the reach of AI-driven precision systems. Yet behind that message was another truth, one every operator in that bunker understood. Each of these victories carries a cost, not measured in dollars or tonnage, but in time lost, in civilians displaced, in children waking to air raid sirens. By sunrise, the fire at Novarosk had finally dimmed. The smoke hung low over the bay, drifting out to sea. The world's analysts would soon pore over the data. The flight paths, the sensor logs, the loss estimates. But inside that Ukrainian bunker, the operators simply watched the orange glow fade and knew that what they had just done would change how wars are fought for years to come. Because on October 12, 2025, a $2 million strike made a $1 billion fortress irrelevant, and proved that in modern warfare, precision, autonomy, and intelligence can rewrite the rules of power itself.